All right, welcome everyone. Here we are in the Designer Show. I'm Dan, on with my good friend John and my good friend Ed Earl. Ed, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Dan and John. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, and welcome to the show. You've got a fun topic to talk about. The idea of keeping your clients happy, avoiding conflict. Staying out of court, having good projects, having happy clients when the project's done.
Right.
Not a bad thing to shoot for, I would say. So,
Yeah.
and I know many contractors do fine with this, but every now and then it helps to just come out with some ideas and what we could do to improve. So again, thanks for being here. John, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good.
Where are you today?
I'm in Austin, Minnesota.
Austin, Minnesota.
Yeah,
Still traveling the country.
We're going to head this down by Springfield, Missouri in the next couple of days, and then we're going to turn left.
Nice. Good
Yep.
for you, man.
Wow.
So, see in the world. See in the world. Good way to
That's
go.
awesome.
All right. Before we get started here, just real quickly, I wanted to share with everyone on Chief Experts Academy. Give me 1 second. Let me show my screen here. And just a few things going on over there at the Academy. If you're watching this now, some of these are live. If you're watching this later, you might see that we have some courses that are already finished, but you can get to them via the recordings. So in fact, these first two, structures, types, and terminologies, and creating a plan and Chief Architect, are done. We've done those courses. They are available on demand. So I like that term, on demand. You get them whenever you want.
Right.
Right now we just finished 2 of the 6 sessions for Structures CAD, where I'm diving deep into how you use the 2D CAD in Chief Architect. So by all means, would love to see you in that course. It's really a fun course. I've never taken the time to really dive that deep into how you do the CAD and the structure stuff within Chief Architect. So I'm really enjoying that. That's a fun course. And of course, we got our Mastering Chief Architect course coming up. Head over to chiefexpertsacademy.com, and you can, on the homepage, you can see some of the information. Head to our store. You can see what's there, see what's coming up, and love to have you participate in some of our courses. If you have any questions, just feel free to go to the About page and hit the Contact Us. Drop us a line. We'll be happy to help you any way we can. So again, thanks. And thanks for being here in the Designer Show. All right. So Ed, let me go to your page here. We'll get started here now, and let's talk about you a little bit. So if you're watching this on Chief Experts Academy, you would be on this page where you're watching the recording here, or the live event here. But right below the live stream, you'll see some information about Ed. You'll see he's kind of a busy guy. He's got Ed and I have known each other now for, I don't know, about 3 years, something like that.
Yeah, 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, we're part of a mastermind together of business professionals that work with contractors. And it's really been great to get to know you. I've been enjoying my time with you. And anytime you do your presentations, I learn so much, because you've got a lot of great information to offer. So Ed, tell me a little bit about, well, let's start with a silly question I start with a lot of people. What's your favorite hobby?
Well, I don't know. I've got a couple of them. So I still love to do trail running and hiking. And I was my wife and I were triathletes back in the day, and before my hair was gray. So that's one hobby. Another, I guess, somewhat of a hobby is baseball.
Oh, okay.
I've loved baseball my whole life, and fortunate, my older son kind of caught my love, and I coached his teams all the way through Little League and travel ball, and you can see my San Diego Padres cap back there. And we're actually really excited.
Oh, nice.
In San Diego, because we finally now have a baseball team that can actually contend and might actually make it to the World Series in the next season. So
that makes it a little more exciting, doesn't it?
Definitely does. Yeah, especially after rooting for the Padres for 20 years and watching them lose every year.
Yeah, I remember in 87 and 91 when the Twins won the World Series. Boy, those are exciting, especially the 87 one, because that was so unexpected. They went from worst to first in 1 year. That was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But cool, good for you. So you've got, all right, hang on, I'm sorry. I do kind of write questions down, and I was looking at the wrong place here. So I invited you to come onto the show here, and you came up with this topic about working with clients. building trust and reducing conflict. So, what are you hoping to share today? What is it that you would like people to go away from?
Yeah. Well, it kind of, we'll talk about it in a minute, but, I've been a practitioner, Zen Buddhist practitioner for about 20 years. I've studied under a Zen master named Thich Nhat Hanh. And that really informs everything that I do, my business practice, as well as my personal life and all of that. And from a business standpoint, I mean, what I'm committed to doing is really providing more cooperation and collaboration and really doing that through developing understanding and compassion with the other party. And so I have a couple of businesses, one in where I work with homeowners that are building custom homes, and then another where I actually coach contractors as a business coach. And so in both cases, what I'm trying to do is get them to understand each other, because oftentimes there's this conflict, or at the very least misunderstanding, between the contractor and the homeowner and vice versa. And so that's really my goal and my key of my focus in all of my various businesses.
So yeah, that conflict that can happen. We'll get into that in just a little bit. So we'll come back to conflict. We won't have conflict. We'll just come back to it. And so, so how did you get into doing what you do today? How'd you get into the industry, and what caused you to take this path?
Well, I fell in love with construction back when I was like 7 or 8 years old. My parents decided to do a little 500 square foot remodel on our house. And I just became captivated by the magic of construction. Every day I'd come home from work or come home from school, so excited to see what they had built that day. And that really captured me. And then after I graduated from college, I worked with my dad's company, and he was growing so quickly that he decided to build his own building, or to move the company into a building. We bought some land from a spec builder and a set of plans, and then hired a contractor. And I, again, was out there every day watching the building get built.
Oh, fun.
So then I headed off to Stanford to get my MBA, and I majored in real estate and development there. And then went to San Diego and started working in the commercial construction side of things. So that's really where I cut my teeth, was on the commercial side. And that's where I really learned my project management skills. And then about 20 or so years ago, I was actually asked by my brother-in-law to manage his residential construction project.
Okay.
And so I came in, and he traveled quite a bit. He's from South Africa. And so I came in and managed the process with his contractor and his interior designer. And it was interesting. There were about 3 houses, a brand new tract of homes, and they were all kind of these were just interior improvements. And we all started at about the same time, but we finished our project like 2 months ahead of everyone else. And the interior designer was like, "Oh my God, Ed, this is such a great service that you provide, how you interface between, me as the designer and the builder." And so I discovered the role of being an owner's rep. And so for the last 20 years, that's really been the core of my business. So
did you even realize that's what you were doing?
No, I didn't even know that something like that existed. Right.
Okay.
So now, as an owner's rep, what I do is I'm a professional advisor that's hired by homeowners that are either building a custom home or doing a pretty high-end remodel. Okay. And if they hire me early enough, I'll help them build their team, which is select their architect, their interior designer, their contractor or builder. And then during the process, I communicate, coordinate, and integrate between all of the parties that are involved.
So would that be your priority one project?
That's priority one project management.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So that's if people were to click on that image on the site here, or just go to priority1projectmanagement.com, that's where they can learn about how you do that.
Right.
So you don't act as a general contractor, right? You
correct.
Right. So
I'm not a licensed contractor. I mean, look, I know enough to know kind of what's right construction and wrong, but I'm not a licensed contractor. So
okay. So your job then is to interface between everybody involved in the project.
Correct.
Kind of like you're the guy that if anybody has questions, they could come to you and you'd point them in the right direction.
Right. And
So-
I'm a huge proponent of cloud-based construction management systems. And so I'll always bring in, I use a couple of different platforms, which there was some big news about that this week.
Oh yeah, I saw your email on that yesterday. It's like, oh yeah.
So, but anyway, and that's a role that I serve. Usually the contractor is not using a cloud-based system, and so I'll utilize that and incorporate that into the management of the project as well.
All right, cool. So before I go any further, I just wanted to say hi. Some few people had said hi. So hey, Bill and M2, how you doing? And we got Hamid and Philip, and I know there's Alex Eichen left a message. So thanks guys for being on here, and you guys feel free to leave comments as we go. And also, if you're viewing this on YouTube, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button for our channel. So we'd love to have you part of our channel. So Ed, so that talks a little bit about your project management skills, bringing the project together. So tell us a little bit about, your other businesses that you run and what those are all about. Just a quick recap on those, and we'll get to talking a little bit about your topic here.
Yeah, sure. So about 7 years ago, I was introduced to Paul Sandeman, who's a business coach, and I actually hired him as my business coach to help me with my construction project management. And but then as I started, having him be my coach, that's actually when I developed being a public speaker. And that came about from a work that I did with, again, as I said, with the monastery and the Zen Buddhists that I was working with, which we can circle back to that in a minute. But I ended up going from being a client to being a business coach. And so about a year and a half ago, I joined forces with Paul Sandeman and our other partner, David Luberger, who I know was recently on your show, Dan.
Yep.
And the three of us formed a company called Residential Contractor Services Group. And so what we provide under this company is an umbrella of services, all specifically designed exclusively to the residential construction industry. So the core of our business is that we provide business coaching. But in addition to that, we also provide marketing services, website design, and one of the key services that we found was most important and most needed was a recruiting service. And so out of that, we actually created a separate company called Contractor Staffing Source. And Contractor Staffing Source is a recruiting company specifically designed. We work exclusively with contractors and architects to help them build their staff.
Wow.
And that's one thing that, so many people, when we're doing business coaching, so many business owners underestimate the importance of recruiting. In my opinion, recruiting is just as important as marketing. Any successful company never stops marketing.
Yeah.
And really, any successful company, especially a construction or design company, should never stop recruiting. So what I kind of liken it to like a football team. You pick whatever your favorite football team is. They always have 2 or 3 quarterbacks. And especially this last season, we saw with COVID, right? You never know when your first string quarterback is going to go down. And if you don't have a good second string quarterback on the bench ready to go, you're in trouble. And the same thing happens with construction. So actually, I was just talking recently to a client who, Dan, you've worked with as well, Scott Julian. One of the designers just gave him a 2-week notice. And he's like, oh my God, what do we do? So we provide a recruiting service. And unlike other headhunting firms that charge you 3 months their first starting salary or 25% of these huge fees, we have a low monthly fee that we charge so that the contractors can constantly be using our recruiting services. And then we have a team of people that if they post something, let's say they needed to hire a lead designer or a general project manager or even a carpenter, we post these positions on 25 different job boards, Monster, Indeed, all of those. And then we have a full-time staff that actually culls through the candidates, interviews them, sends them an assessment test that's amazing. It's like a combination of Myers-Briggs and these other DISC things. And then once we get through and interview them and select the very best, then we turn them over to our clients. And our clients, instead of sifting through 50 resumes, give 3 or 4 qualified clients that they can then interview and hire from them.
Cool. You do that for a flat fee?
And we do that.
Okay. It just reminds me, sad story. It's actually very current. My son called me yesterday and said their project manager, 58 years old, who'd been with the company 37 years, passed away from a brain aneurysm. It's like, oh, it's just there at the funeral. My son's at the funeral right now. It's like, oh my gosh. So I just made a note. I know the company owner, and I said, I think I'll have him get in touch with you because I'm sure they're going to be looking. It's a really sad example of how you need to find good help fast.
You just don't know. And, especially now in COVID, what's happening is, it's very interesting because we're fortunate that in our, design and construction industry, it's booming, right?
Yeah.
But, if you're in hospitality or travel or, lots of other industries, your business is really taking a hit. And we're finding many people are deciding to switch industries. So we had one of our clients in South Carolina actually needed a selections coordinator. And so he actually hired a wedding planner. And if you think about that, it's so perfect, right? I mean, here's this woman that knew how to be dealing in stressful, emotional situations with couples planning their wedding, selecting the color of their napkins and their meal and their band. And so she went from that to now guiding people through all of their finish selections. So it's the same skill set. It's the same approach. And she just switched industry because she was like, I don't know when I'm going to be able to plan weddings again.
No,
there's a lot of really great talent out there. And that's our team does a great job of that, of finding talent that have applicable skills that are transferable to the construction industry that are in other industries that have been negatively impacted by the pandemic.
And of course, that's such a big topic nowadays in the industry as a whole. I mean, where do you find good help, and especially in the field? So moving on, so that's a couple of your companies, and then you got your you got your coaching, and then your Zen Builder is your speaking. That's your speaking.
Right.
But that's where
how that came about was right. And so how that came about was, as I said, I've been a practitioner under Thich Nhat Hanh for 20 plus years. But I was actually invited and asked and hired to be the project manager, the owner's rep for the construction of a nunnery at the Deer Park Monastery, which is here in San Diego. And that's a picture of it. And as you can tell, if you look at that there, the walls were actually made out of straw bale. And I just found out that John actually has built a straw bale house. Mm-hmm. And so this was a high sustainable design building built out of straw bale. It was basically a zero net energy structure that we created. But I had the privilege and a possibility to work with these monastics, these sisters that you see in the picture here, for about a year and a half. And it was fascinating for me to watch these Zen monastic sisters approach construction, which typically for my homeowner clients was an incredibly stressful and emotional up and down. And every week they're having breakdowns. And these monastics just handled it as peacefully and centered and calm as they do everything else in their life. And so it really helped me to understand, hey, I think I could bring this Zen practice to my clients, both my homeowners as well as my contractors, and help to have a more peaceful, collaborative, less stress, less conflict relationship in a construction project.
That's cool. That's cool. So, and those of you watching right now, it's just, he's just told us a lot of information about his businesses, but I think that's really relevant and very important to understand what Ed's about to talk about in making your customers happy. So Ed, let's just kind of move into that discussion now about, when you are working with a client or you're working with a contractor, what is it that you advise them on doing to, roll into the project?
Right. So the first and most important thing that any contractor needs to build in a construction project is not the foundation. It is trust. Trust is so important. And you have to start building trust from the minute you meet, even before they're a client, when they're a prospect. And then you need to continue to develop and build that trust every step along the way.
Well, doesn't that trust start? That trust kind of starts from I mean, even before you meet them with your marketing, your website, the people out there, referrals.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, joining the Better Business Bureau, having, you know, professional credentials and all of that. And, you know, Dan, I mean, that's important, right, in any business.
Yeah.
But it's especially important in residential construction because, unfortunately, you know, there's this stereotype in our society that contractors are dishonest and that the construction industry, you know, doesn't have, you know, is out to kind of get as much money as they can out of people. And so that's just running in the background when a new, you know, client, you're meeting a new client, they have already seen, you know, there's been these great television shows and commercials about, you know, the dishonest contractors.
This might be where I play that little commercial here.
Yeah, so let's play that Citibank commercial. I think that was really funny.
All right.
Okay. Well, this here's a load-bearing wall. We'll go ahead and rip that out. It's going to cause a lot of problems. Totally unnecessary, and it triples the budget.
We'll be way behind schedule, right?
Schedules.
Schedules.
Great. Okay.
That's a cute little video. I like that one.
But you know, it's a joke, right? We all laugh about it. I mean, even homeowners would laugh about it.
Yeah.
But somewhere deep in their mind, that kind of embeds in there, and they go, you know, God, I better make sure he doesn't tear out that load-bearing wall, you know? Yeah.
Let's play the other guy here.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Leslie wanted to hire a contractor to build a stage. I don't want to paint with a broad brush here, but every single contractor in the world is a miserable, incompetent thief.
Right.
I love him. He's great.
Yeah. Right. So that's the thing. And, you know, contractors, it's really important that we recognize that, you know, even though we don't want to admit that, the fact is that there is this underlying suspicion and distrust that our society and these stereotypes have fed into our clients.
But don't contractors rank up there with used car sales people and, you know, tin siding people?
Right. So, you know, as contractors, we have to try even harder to build trust and establish trust with our clients.
So John, do you run into that up in your neck of the woods, working with homeowners?
I was just thinking about that. I had a really good group of clients that I serviced over the years. Even I'd do a project, and 2 or 3 years later, they'd come back and want to do another project. So I had a lot of good experiences with that until the very end, and then I had a couple of bad ones. But yeah, so there's a question there from George. I wonder if, Ed, you could talk about that from the reverse. Sometimes there's clients that aren't trustworthy.
Yeah, that's a great question, George. Yeah. Most clients want a high quality job done quickly and at a low cost. Is this achievable or just a utopian dream? So, yeah, let me first address, John, your question, which is about, you know, that homeowners can be dishonest more than contractors. Completely agree. You know, as a business coach, I can't tell you how many of our clients have gotten stiffed by a homeowner, and, you know, they didn't pay the last 10%, or they, you know, cut somewhere else, and I actually think that is a bigger problem.
I see John's hand going up.
Yeah.
Your hand should be going up. You mentioned those last few clients.
Totally true. And so much when we work with our contractors, it's really helping them to make sure that they don't get you know, screwed by dishonest homeowners. And, you know, the homeowner that you turn down is actually more important decision than the homeowners that you take. So,
this is a good comment too. HGTV creates a false narrative. Yeah. 1,000 will get you a brand new whatever. Bring on the tire kickers.
Tire kickers. That's it. Got it. You know, you just don't waste your time with those tire kickers. And, you know, as a owner's rep, you know, I'll tell my homeowners, do not base your decision based on price. You know, this is not like buying something on the internet where you can get a price from 3 different people and you pick the lowest one. You're buying a different product from every person. And I will tell you, after doing this for 20 plus years, the lowest price is never the lowest cost. There's always other factors in there. And anyone that's taken the lowest price, they always regret it.
And by that, you're also talking about costs that don't involve money, emotional costs, all those things.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as a contractor, how would you, building trust, like you talked about, how would you navigate helping a homeowner realize that as a business, you have to make a certain amount of money in order to stay in business and take care of them?
Right. Right.
How do you navigate that?
Yeah. And then also I saw Jeffrey's question too. I wanted to talk about that. Let's
Yeah.
bring that back in a second.
Okay, I'll bring it back. Yeah.
Yeah. So John, it's all about setting expectations and helping to educate the homeowner and getting them to understand that this is not a price-based decision. You know, this is a decision that you're making based on the reputation of the contractor. The most important is feeling comfortable with that contractor. You know, do you feel, you know, this guy, you're going to be spending a lot of time with him over the length of your project. You know, do you like him? Do you trust him? And if you can't answer yes to those two questions, I don't care what his price is, you shouldn't pick him.
Here's another thing I just thought of. You're going to be thinking about him for the rest of your life, or at least the time that you're living in your house.
Right. And actually, if you're the contractor, you actually want that. You know,
Right.
David Luperger has a great project. He talks about a concept called client for life. And that's what you want. You know, you want that client for life. And you don't do that if you haven't built that no trust like relationship with them. So.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of contractors think of the lifetime value of a client. You know, they're going to do a kitchen this year. They might do a room addition in 3 years, a bathroom in 5 years. I mean, so there can be a lifetime value there that can be really a lot of revenue.
Right. Yeah. Question. There we go. Yeah. As a designer, I build trust with the client and then turn the project over to the contractor. So managing the client expectation is key to success. Jeffrey, you're right on. That is so important.
Yeah.
Managing the client expectation can be done in a couple of different ways. Here's something that as a designer or as a builder that you can use with your clients. And that's to get them to understand that their construction project is a prototype. And, you know, homeowners are not used to buying prototypes, right? I mean, you know, Ford goes through hundreds of different designs before they put a new car out on the road, right? And, you know, software, I mean, it's, you know, my iPhone, I mean, it's gotten every, you know, 2 weeks, I get a new software update. You can't do that in a construction project, right? When you're done, you can't push up a software update that's going to fix whatever design or construction issues you have. So you need the client to understand, hey, you know, well, Mr. Homeowner, we're building a prototype here. You know, yes, I'm a kitchen remodeler and I have done 50 kitchens before, but I've never done your exact kitchen before. You know, even if I did your neighbor's kitchen, it's the same model in your tract home. Yeah, I done the same kitchen, but that was for a different family under different circumstances, and it wasn't during COVID. So you got to get the homeowners to understand that this is a prototype, and part of the inherent in a design of a prototype is you make mistakes. That's the only way you learn is by making mistakes. And so you tell the homeowner from the very beginning, you know what? I'm going to guarantee you I'm going to make mistakes. But I'm also going to guarantee you that I'm going to be very upfront with those. I'm going to let you know what's going on, and together we will work through them. But I'm not going to promise you a certain, you know, day that it's going to be done, because this is a prototype and we can't control what's going on, especially now in the midst of a worldwide pandemic. So, and, you know, for a contractor, what kind of pressure that puts on you? You know, you have one chance to get this right. You're building a prototype and you can't rebuild it. You can't issue 3 different model changes like Ford or push up a software iOS update like Apple. You got one chance to get it right. And that's a lot of pressure on a contractor. And the more that you can help your client to understand that and set that client expectation, it changes the whole dynamic of that construction project.
That is so true. That is really true. Give me 1 second here. So actually, I did a blog article on that topic. I used to, whenever I would sign an agreement with a client, a customer client, what I would do is I had a separate form, and the title of the form, here's everything that's going to go wrong with your project. Not everything. Here's 20 things that could possibly go wrong with your project. And so I would present that to the client. Actually, here, I'll show my screen here. So if you go to my blog, chief expert's blog, and you search for wrong. Just search for the word wrong, okay, and it'll bring this up. And here's a little article I wrote, kind of going through some of those things I had on that form. We're going to put up dust barriers everywhere, but dust is going to get in your house. It's just it goes through plastic.
Yeah.
One of my subs is not going to show up when they're supposed to. Something's going to come up. Don't worry, we'll take care of it. Some material is going to be delivered. It's going to be wrong, or it might not be very good material. We'll take care of it. So setting those expectations ahead of time. Oh, here's my form I used to use actually. And it worked, man. I mean, I believe I had a comment in here too about what you're going to talk about in a second about remodeling fever. But that it might have even been a separate form. I don't remember right offhand, but it was I would tell my clients, this is the most excited you're ever going to be in the construction right now. Then we're going to come tear out, and we're going to dig a hole and put your foundation in. You're going to wonder, oh God, is that room going to be too small? And then, just to let you know, once it gets capped and we backfill, you go, oh my, this is a nice size room. And just on and on and on, that whole process. I mean, you want to talk about that now? Should I show that?
That's a great segue.
Let me bring that up. That was this one right here. And so why don't you go ahead and comment on that?
So this is a chart. It was actually developed by my colleague, David Luperger, who is a partner in RCSG, and I know was recently on your show. So David created this chart, and I just love it. I give it to, as an owner's rep, I give it to all of my clients before we start a job. And I get them to understand that there are going to be these emotional ups and downs during the construction process. And, at the very beginning, when they're starting design, their mood level's 100%, right? And then as you're working through working drawings and getting bids and putting a contract together, it drops, to the bottom. And then, boy, the minute you start construction and demo and framing, and they get so excited, and I had a project, it took us like 2 years to get through the design process because the Homeowners Association was so draconian, and getting through design review was crazy. So he was so hungry to get started on construction. And so once we start construction, he's out there every day. And he's so excited, like during framing, because he's like, Ed, I can't believe it. Like every day I show up and you guys have another room framed. And he said, so I'm figuring at this point, we're going to be done in maybe a couple months. And I'm like, no, you know what? And I pulled this chart out. I said, we're right here. Right, exactly. We're right there. I said, now we're going to start this process called rough-in. And during rough-in is when we put all the stuff inside the walls, wires and your plumbing and pipes and the mechanical. And it's going to seem like weeks before nothing's going to happen. You're going to start showing up and go, wait a second, it looks the same as it did last week when I was here. Yeah. And you're going to get all the way to the bottom, right there where you got the arrow, Dan. Yeah. And then you're going to think, this is it. Forget it, Then we start hanging drywall. You get a little bump at drywall because you go, oh, the walls are starting to come together. I said, but then we start what we call tape and texture, which is where we go in and sand the drywall and we're taping and texturing. And the whole place is just going to be a mess. Even with plastic up, that drywall dust gets everywhere.
And before the mud and the plaster, they might get a little bit higher than that. Right. Then they're going to come right back down.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So then by the time you're done with the drywall sanding, that's it. That's the nadir, right? That's the lowest point that they hit right there. Yeah. But the good news is at that point, right, things start to look up because that's when we start the fun part, which is all the finishes. And we're going to start, installing all your light fixtures and plumbing fixtures and painting and all the great tile work that you worked on. And, but then I warn them and say, at that point, you're going to go, hey, this house is done. I've already sent the invitations out. We're having a, housewarming party in 2 weeks. And you're like, no. You still got several weeks left of, getting all the punch list stuff, your flooring in. And by the way, your refrigerator was back ordered because of COVID.
Yeah. Well, kind of depending on the contractor and the client, punch, there should be a punch list in here. Because sometimes that can drive it back down, especially for the contractor if you got a picky client.
Right. And you're exactly right, Dan. And I mean, you've been telling David that a couple of people have said that you're missing one more dip, and
that last 10%.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah. So that's a killer sometimes. Because you, like you say, you might have a few things, but you're waiting 3 weeks for some parts to come in, or, the countertop got scratched, and now you got to fix it or replace it. I mean, that kind of stuff. It's like, oh,
Right.
I did a job once where this is way back in my early days of construction, and we did a kitchen remodel and new floor and everything. We were putting the refrigerator in, and I moved the refrigerator, and I broke I damaged the vinyl flooring. Big chunk come out. Of course, we had to replace the whole kitchen floor. I mean, it's just like, it's one of those sheets. There's no way you could fix it that would ever last. And it's just like, okay, learn there to be really careful. But speaking of that kind of stuff.
Now, while I give this chart to my homeowner clients, we also have many of our contractor coaching clients that actually use this chart in their marketing materials. And that's a really effective way to be utilized in your marketing materials. And the same thing, if I'm not on a project, the contractor, we say, look, give them this chart, either as part of your sales presentation, or when you're doing your pre-con kickoff meeting, give them a copy of this chart and say, hey, look, this is where we are. And David always says too, what I like to do is, he'll bring that up and say, where are you right now? Where is your emotional level? How do we need to talk about that? So
I would actually pull out my form not often, but sometimes the homeowners, I could see they're really frustrated. They're getting angry at me and things like that. And what's going on, So I'd pull out that form. Remember, I told you before the job started that this was going to happen.
Right.
And they go, oh yeah, you did, didn't you? Yeah. So
if any of you want that form, if you log on to my website, Priority One Project Management, there's a place where you can log in and I can put in your email address and I'll send you the form.
Yeah. It's probably out there online somewhere too. But anyway, that's a really good visual for your clients.
Right.
To kind of see what's going to happen through that project. So all right. So what else you want to add to that?
Well, let's go back. Yeah, let's go back to the trust issue, because I think that needs a little bit more specificity here of how you trust. I mean, it sounds great, but how do you do that? So there are two keys to building trust with homeowners. The first is documentation. You need to document everything that's happening in your construction project. And, unfortunately, oftentimes contractors are not the best at documentation, right? And as a designer, that, because the designer is all about documentation, but oftentimes they aren't. And then the second key to building trust is communication. And, staying in touch, keeping your client informed, explaining every step along the way. The emotional roller coaster is one step in that process. Establishing realistic expectations, like getting them to understand that it's like a prototype is another. So, and I think, in my opinion, the best way to achieve both of those objectives of documentation and communication is with a cloud-based construction project management system. So I'm a huge proponent of those. That's one of the first recommendations that I give to a new business coaching client, the new contractor that I'm working with. If they're not already on a cloud-based system, I tell them, okay, let's go check them out and decide, what we want to use.
Yeah. So you're talking about, Builder Trend, Co-Construct,
Right.
Build Tools. I mean, there's a bunch of them out there. Yeah.
Exactly.
What news on Builder Trend and Co-Construct?
Yeah, so huge news this week in the industry is that Builder Trend actually acquired Co-Construct this week.
Oh, really?
And they were really two of the biggest leaders, I think the largest really on the residential side. And, in my construction management business, I use a lot of different ones. I use Co-Construct and Builder Trend and UDA Construction Online. Some of our clients use Procore. So I kind of have firsthand experience of them. And I've always had this issue where I'm using Co-Construct and I forget that there's that feature that they don't have a Co-Construct that's in Builder Trend. I'm like, oh shoot, that's right. I can't do that because that's in Builder Trend, not Co-Construct, or vice versa. I'm doing a project in Builder Trend and it's like, oh, that's right. I can't do that in Builder Trend. That's in Co-Construct. So, I know some of our clients, many of our clients are co-construct users and some Builder Trend. And both of them were kind of worried about this because they specifically picked one platform and the other for certain reasons. And they now feel like, hey, it's almost like you're a Mac user, and Bill Gates, struck a deal with Steve Jobs and bought Apple, all the Apple. Oh my God, no, we've come to the dark side,
Yeah.
So that's how some people are feeling this week. But my feeling is, look, I'm not a software engineer, so I don't know how they're going to integrate the platforms. But if they can, I think it's going to be great for all the users of Builder Trend and co-construct, because now we're going to get the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really great. And if a contractor is not on a cloud-based system, you just have to by now. It's just become imperative, because now with this merger, everyone is going to be on this. And, it used to be, and it still is, a advantage. Like I'll tell my contractor coaching clients, look, when you go into a new client presentation, bring your tablet, bring your iPad, and show them whatever system you're using, because you're probably, if they're getting 2 or 3 different contractors are talking to you, you may be the only one using a cloud-based system. That's starting to go away because people are using, more people, more contractors are using it, but that's still a competitive.
Yeah, our local NARI association, we're going to do March 9th. We're going to have each of these tools are going to be giving a 20-minute presentation, and they'll take Q&A. And it's like, oh crap, now what do we do? Builder Trend and co-construct is going to be one product. So it's like, it's like, okay, I guess we'll just see what happens. But I had a really good conversation with Build Tools, which I thought was cool. They're going to be, we talked about for the designer, because a lot of us are just designers. We don't just designers, we have the most important part of the damn project, but we're just designers. And so we got to talking about, why don't you have part of this just for, so designers can keep track of their project and then do selections and all that. And then you could bring the contractor into it and all of that, instead of the contractor bringing the designer into it. So it's like, oh yeah. So we might start some talk there, but with any of these too, I mean, well, some of these they get a little spendy, I think, for a designer to manage a project on it.
Right.
From my understanding, I've never really looked into the cost of it, but anyway. So, but
Build Tools. I don't know if you know the history behind Build Tools. So, Builder Trend was started by software developers. Co-construct was started by Donnie Wyatt, who was a homeowner that actually went through a terrible construction project and was like, I've got to find a better way to do it. Build Tools was actually started by a contractor, Sven Gustafsson, I think, and I think he's in somewhere in Minnesota.
They got bought out by another company,
right? And so that's what I was going to say, is just like Builder Trend bought out co-construct, Build Tools got bought out by, I think it's ECI, which owns Mark Systems. And Mark Systems, our big production builders use Mark Systems because that's really the cloud-based system that's used for production residential builders, and they have LotView and a few others. So I'm optimistic that Build Tools is going to be a bigger player now with the large.
Sure sounds like it after talking to the guy that's going to do the presentation. In fact, if any of you guys on the call, go to narymn.org, and you're welcome to join us for our monthly meeting coming up. We charge $25 for the meeting. So, I mean, it's a fundraiser for the association. We'd love to have you, and you might learn a few things about the different online softwares. So please feel free to join us over there. And then, I don't think we'll be doing a recording afterwards. I don't think. Maybe we will. I don't even know. So anyway, I agree with you 100% on that, because communication, here's where in my opinion, here's where trust fails the most, is when it's the he said, she said, or he said, you said kind of a thing. Or, I told you this, but you heard this.
Right.
Okay. And that's why you have to put it in writing somewhere. I was talking to Steve in Colorado. You knew Steve Christie, don't you, John? He was telling me 3 or 4 years ago in our Vegas event that they had just gotten co-construct the year before. And he figured that just by having that software, and they went through a lot of effort to set it up and use it regularly, he figures they saved, or they got paid for $60,000 to $70,000 worth of change orders they never would have gotten otherwise, just because they documented it properly. Now they had a system in place to document it. So speaking, so now the customer's okay with it because they've signed off on it. The contractors are getting paid for it, so they're happy. So, I mean, that trust level is way up there because you're communicating the way you should be. So I used to go by a saying, John, you've heard me say this before, trust everyone, but cut the cards. And my way of cutting the cards was putting it in writing when I work with them. And so I put everything in writing. And if I didn't, and I didn't get paid for the change order, it was my fault, not my client's fault. I didn't blame them. It's just like, yeah, I should have gotten you that information right away, and I failed. So, And
another thing too, kind of somewhat related to trust, or when trust doesn't happen, we talked about the dishonest homeowners, and there's a great story that Spencer Paget tells. He used to be with Co-Construct. So when he was a builder and using Co-Construct, he was building, I think, like a $3 million house, and the homeowner didn't want to pay that last 10%. So it was like $300,000 that was left outstanding. And so Spencer went to his attorney to, file a lawsuit to get this homeowner to pay. And the attorney said, well, give me everything you got on the project. Well, because Spencer was using Co-Construct, he turned over to the attorney like 1,100 pages of documents, photos, timelines, correspondence, like everything.
Wow.
And the attorney was like, wow, this is great. And he won the lawsuit. He got paid that last $300,000, and he wouldn't have had that if he wasn't using Co-Construct and had all that documentation.
Yeah, and there are clients out there like that. I have a good friend that's on this call right now on this live stream. I won't bring up his name. That had that same experience. The client just said, "No, I'm not going to pay for the last 10%."
Right.
So that's what it is.
Yeah.
And I can see him smiling right now. He knows who he is. And so it happens. It does. So like you're saying, that documentation is killer. Yeah. So you got some more things. Should we go look at some of the comments here?
Yeah, we could. Let's look at some of the comments. I've got some more information, but
okay. We'll do these real quick. As a designer, gets a third of my work is getting a building permit after low-cost bidder failed to get the permit. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You don't need a permit. Oh, yeah. That's Did you know if a contractor doesn't pull a permit, the client, at least in Minnesota, the client does not have a legal obligation to pay them.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you don't get a permit, you're up the creek. Yeah. Those mistakes are design alternatives. Yeah.
I like that.
Okay. He uses Jeff uses the roller coaster chart.
Great. Good
Kevin,
job.
he likes to use a roller coaster chart all the way through the project. Yeah.
That's perfect. That's the best way to do it.
Heck, I got thrown right off of that one. Yep. Trust comes from honest heart and humility to admit when you don't know everything.
Right, exactly. And that's where you admit that you made those mistakes, and you say, look, I'm not going to try to, snow wash it and not, cover up my mistakes. Look, I didn't know,
Yeah. I just got a string back. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah. Just work as a team.
Yeah, exactly.
Follow up every phone call and email with bullet points.
That's great, Jeffrey. Yep.
Yeah.
I do that every site meeting. I've got that. And again, that's where, there's these great to-do lists and correspondence, job logs that you can do in the cloud-based systems.
So where do we get that roller coaster chart?
Yeah. So if you go to PriorityOneProjects.com, and then you can go in there and it'll say, get the homeowner's emotional roller coaster. So
let me see here. Let me bring that up real quick. Let me show it. Here we go. Turn that off. So Priority One Projects.
Resources.
Resources.
There you go. Homeowner's emotional roller coaster. There it is.
Oh, there you go. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Just do that, and you'll send it over to you.
Right. Exactly.
Cool.
So another thing that we were going to talk about is dealing with difficult clients and how you deal with difficult homeowners. And one of the first steps is identifying whether they're going to be difficult or not. And I have found that there's one question I can ask a homeowner to find out if they're going to be difficult or not. So
Everybody write this down. Write it down. Everybody write it down.
Yeah. What, John, you want to guess what the question is?
No, I don't.
Dan?
I'm sorry, I was putting your URL in there. What was the question?
What's one question you can ask your homeowner client to find out if they're going to be difficult or not?
Gosh, a lot of times I would do that by observation. I'd look at their house if they had a billion knickknacks and their house was immaculate and dust free and everything was perfect. Sometimes that could be a really difficult customer. I probably could figure out a question, but why don't you go ahead?
Yeah. So this is it. You ready?
Yeah.
So what do you do?
What
For a
do you
living?
do?
Yeah. So what do you do? And then depending on what they tell me, I can know if they're going to be difficult. So I have, after doing this for 20 plus years, I've pretty much concluded that their profession is a pretty good indicator of whether they're going to be difficult or not. I've had some contractors tell me they can tell that by the car they drive, but in the profession, it really is. And so I've made my list of the 4 most difficult professions to deal with and the 4 most difficult clients. So the first profession is, you want to guess, John?
Attorneys.
Good. Well, that's close. They're not first in mine, but Dan?
Engineers.
There you go.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yep.
Engineers.
Okay.
Yeah. Engineers are number 1 on my list. And the reason is for a few different reasons. First off, engineers are so precise in their thinking, right? They want to have everything planned out, and this is going to happen, and then this, and then this. And you can't do that in a residential construction project, right? There's no way to anticipate everything that's going to happen. And sometimes it's even worse if they're a construction engineer, because usually if that's the case, they're probably a commercial engineer, right? They're used to designing office buildings or public structures or whatever. And in that case, there's no emotions in those processes. It's cut and dry. Look, here's the calculations. Here's the load bearing. Here's what we need to do. And they don't get it when they sit down with their wife and they're trying to pick the carpet color and she's all emotional and they're like, I don't get it. Like, why? What? I'm not used to that,
Yeah, there's no imagination with engineers, isn't there?
Right.
And very little.
The other issue, John, with engineers is you think about what they're paid to do. They always re-engineer things, so they're always making changes, making changes, and that just is crazy. So
yeah. And I said attorneys, but I've worked for several attorneys, and they're all great clients. So
yeah. Well, and actually, attorneys are second on my list. So if we go through the rest of the list real quickly, so attorneys are second. Why? Because of what we've talked about with the trust issues. An attorney is paid to not trust someone, right? They're paid to go, okay, what happens if this goes wrong? And so they feed off that same mistrust of the construction industry that we talked about. And that's why attorneys can be tough.
Yeah.
And I never experienced that with the attorneys that I worked for.
Yeah. The best story I had was why I gave a presentation at the Minneapolis NARI a few years back. And one of the guys said, I had my attorney draft my construction contract and he did a great job. And, then a couple, 2 or 3 years later, he hired me to do his remodel. So I gave him the contract that he drafted and he would sign it.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
So,
I've had issues with architects when I was contracting that were tough to work for because they were like engineers, super picky. Plus they knew what was going on. Plus they thought they could control everything. Plus they thought they could get everything for cheaper. Plus, and it made it really a difficult experience to say the least.
Third on my list, just to finish out my top 4. Third on my list is doctors. So doctors can be really tough. They don't understand. Again, it's not like surgery, and they don't understand every house is built differently. It's not like the human body. You open up, someone's leg, I won't say who, and their bones are broken. famous person that happened in an accident, you know, everyone knows what you need to do to put that femur and the bones back in the right place because they all went in the same place, right? But in a construction project, totally different. You have no idea what you're going to find when you open those walls up. And then the last of my 4 is not so much a profession as it is a lack of a profession, and that is a retired person. So, you know, they have a lot of time on their hands. They're at the job site more than you are. And the only thing that's worse than a retired person is a retired engineer or a retired doctor.
Yeah, that's where you pull out the hourly pricing chart that says, you know, if you don't watch me work, you leave us alone, the price is 100. If you are watching us, the price is 150. If you want to help, the price is 250. You know?
That's good. Yeah, I think that's really good.
Yeah. Yeah. Because there are guys that, I mean, I've had guys, I used to do a lot of as-built measuring houses, and I'd have guys, can I help you? Let me give you a hand. And a lot of times they were helpful, but sometimes they were too distracting. So I had to ask, you know, I said, hey, I really need to focus here. Do you mind if I just work alone? And they're fine, but yeah, it's all good. So, but that's cool. Let's see.
Any questions?
Let me see here. I'm looking back. John, do you see any?
I like Mary's comment that you put up there for just a second.
The
Kevin
one about
an engineer.
Yeah. To get them think creatively.
Unnecessary pain. Yeah, that's a good way to do it.
Yeah, that's it.
You know, some people think, okay, Ed, I'm so glad you told me that question, because what I'm going to do, you know, in my you know, prospecting, when someone calls me and wants to hire me, I'm going to say, well, so what do you do? And if they tell me they're an engineer or a doctor or, you know, a retired person, I'll just say, you know what? I'm just so busy right now. We're booked up to like 2024, you know? So then you better go find something.
Yeah, that is so
the
true.
fact is that if a difficult client, I mean, I had a doctor one time, his name was Dr. A, and he was kind of a pain in the A, but he became my best reference because he loved me. He loved everything we did. And if you know they're going to be difficult and you know how to deal with them, difficult clients can be some of your best references. Yeah. And how you know how to deal with them is based on their tendencies, right? So if you have an attorney, document everything. Give them more information rather than less. You know?
That reminds me of
an engineer, you know, start your first meeting, you got to tell them we're building a prototype.
Yeah.
If anyone will get it, the engineer will. And you say, hey, look, we're building a prototype. We're doing this together. We're going to have mistakes, like everything is made in a prototype. And that's the way we're going to approach this.
Yeah. You know, there's another good question, or a couple of them. You know, one is, you know, have you ever done remodeling projects before? And if they say yes, and then you ask, well, why aren't you hiring the person that did it before? And if they say, well, we had so much trouble with them, we ended up suing them, and, you know, that kind of a deal, you know. I've actually had people like that said that, and it's like, yeah, I was a little leery about working on the project. Yeah, and then there's one, how many are you getting other bids? And I say, yeah, we're going to get 10 other bids. You know, it's just like, yeah, now we're out of here.
No.
But yeah, building that trust. Plus, clients are in the financial industry. They know the value of money and are willing to invest in their home. That's really true.
And not only, Mary, do they understand the value of money, but they understand the value of time.
Yeah.
And that's even more important than money, because you can make more money, but you can't make more time.
Worst client ever insisted watching me every minute. He changed something every few minutes. Yeah, that's where you get up there.
Charles, I bet you he was retired. Or if not, he probably had too much time on his hands.
All right, Ed, this has been fun. A couple minutes left. What would you like to add or leave everybody with here?
Well, I think, you know, the key thing here is really, you know, how really getting to understand the other person's perspective. And if you're a contractor or a designer, getting to understand the homeowner's perspective, understand that they're approaching that from a sense of mistrust because of the societal context that we talked about. And really having that, again, I go back to my Zen master of compassion, you know, compassion and understanding. And how you do that is by really putting yourself in the other person's shoes, getting, you know, thinking like the homeowner, understanding that the homeowner has never done this before. They don't understand construction. And that really helps to change things. And it's, I think it's much harder now to do a construction project in today's world of internet shopping.
Oof.
Because people are so used to buying stuff online. You can read reviews, see 3 pictures, get 4 prices. You know exactly what you're getting.
Yeah.
And a construction project isn't like that. Every builder is going to deliver you a different product and in a different set of circumstances. And that's a real challenge. And so I think as construction industry professionals, it's incumbent on us to educate our clients. And I think it starts in the design stage. As designers, some of your designers have said here, I think it starts with the design. I mean, the designers are the first contact with those homeowners.
Yep.
And if they can help to set realistic expectations and help the homeowners understand that this is an iterative process and there will be changes and unanticipated uncertainties along the way, it can really help to make the entire project run more smoothly.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, Ed, thanks again for being here. This was really a great conversation, and we had a lot of nice comments here, and I think we're about done. What is that last one? So Darren says, every problem is usually resolved with scope, schedule, budget, triangle. Letting the customer pick which 2 of the 3 are most important. And that's really true too. Yeah. You can't have a fast project with high quality at a low price.
That's right.
That whole triangle. So pick 2.
Yep.
Anyway, thanks again, Ed. It's been a pleasure.
Sure.
You
Very
guys, you head over to priority1projectmanagement.com to grab that form and find out a little bit more about Ed. And
and if anyone's out there that's looking for staff, whether it's, like I said, designers or project managers or finish carpenters, reach out to me. You can contact me through any of my websites, but I'd be happy to talk to you about that, or business coaching as well. If you're an architect, designer, or contractor and want some help with guiding your business and helping it to grow and have more fun and make more money, then we can help you out with that too.
Yeah, if you're watching this somewhere else besides our website, you can always head over to chiefexpertsacademy.com and head over to the blog and search for 41, and that'll bring up Ed's information, and all his contact information will be right here at the bottom. So that'd be one way to find out the information, or just search for your name, I assume, Ed.
And those are all live links.
Oh no, they spelled your name wrong. Shoot.
No, that's right.
Oh, is it? Oh, I thought you had an E at the end after that.
No, I have an E at the end.
Well, I've been spelling it wrong all this time.
Yeah, no, you're right. and just so people know, I think, Dan, you put live links on the logos down below my bio. So
yeah, those are all the links.
Contractor staffing source, or residential contractor, or priority 1 projects.
Yeah, cool. Well, Ed, it's been a pleasure. It's great knowing you. Great services. You're solving a ton of problems out in the industry. So keep up the good work, man.
Thank you. Thanks to all the listeners. I'll leave you with this. Be safe, be kind, be well.
Awesome. Thanks, Ed.